You want to borrow mine? My big map? Better turn off the air fist before it starts. Great show.
That is a little odd. Well, all right, it is 7 o'clock. Make sure we got everybody up here. Welcome everyone to our city council meeting tonight. It's good to have you here. Appreciate your attendance. Especially welcome our scouts here tonight, working on some merit badges, I suppose. Which troop are you from? Awesome. Thank you. Well, welcome. If anyone is here to speak at the open comment period, I do have, there's forms out on the podium out there. If you would fill those out, I've got a couple of them already. If you would fill them out and hand them to Wendy, our deputy recorder. We'll go ahead and begin tonight. Turn the time over to Councilmember Phipps for our opening ceremony.
Would you please stand and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to do a little something different today in memory of this day, because September 11th should be a day that is burned in our minds forever. And those that are new to the earth, that weren't around at this time, I think we want to make sure that the significance of that date is always understood. So we know what happened. It's the kind of thing that happens in life that in such a way as we all know where we were and what we were doing when that occurred. I vividly recall that in my own life, and as I met one of my coworkers, I said to him, our lives have changed. So, but the reaction to us as a society, as a country, was remarkable and memorable. We came together, we fought against evil, and we have triumphed. In recognition of that, I would like to propose that we all take a moment in silence now and contemplate those who have gone before us in this great tragedy and those who gave their lives to make sure that it doesn't happen again. So would you join with me in a moment of silence? Thank you.
Thank you, Vern. I appreciate that. Definitely appropriate at this point. Council, we have minutes to approve from August 21st work session and the August 22nd neighborhood party. You had a chance to review the minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
Your Honor, I would move to approve the August 21st, 2018 work session and August 22nd, 2018 neighborhood party minutes as they have been drafted.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Peterson, a second from Councilmember Bush. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Well, the first item on our agenda tonight is a public hearing to receive public comment on the proposed ordinance to regulate small wireless facilities in the city. And Spencer, we're going to go ahead and turn the time over to you for some discussion on that.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and public. This item before you this evening is an amendment to our current zoning ordinance. And so just to give a little bit of context for those who are in attendance relative to this matter and why it is a public hearing, state statute outlines the abilities for land use authorities and executive bodies as yourself, for municipalities such as Clearfield City, relative to your responsibilities to amend, change codes, make decisions relative to the operation of the city. This is a proposal to amend our current Title 11 land use ordinance, and thus it requires approval by this body with a recommendation from the Planning Commission. So it is what we call a legislative matter or a legislative act, because it does require this body to take final action on approving or disapproving of this request. These are subject to comment and feedback and things of that nature, but this wireless facilities code, or small wireless facilities code under ZTA 1807-0005, actually comes to us as a directive from our state legislature. Recently there's been changes at the state level regulating these facilities and mandating that they be allowed to be constructed within public rights of way. The state has created codes to regulate these types of facilities as they are installed across the state of Utah. However, municipalities do have purview to enact regulations that would more specifically regulate them relative to the objectives and goals of the city. Clearfield City has proposed an ordinance that would allow for the installation of these small wireless facilities within the city that would hopefully keep them a little bit hidden, even though they're still out there, and but minimize their impact on our view sheds, especially in our public rights of way, and also not be an negative impact to our Public Works Department as they seek to operate, maintain, and keep our roads safe and habitable for our citizenry. Again, what staff has provided here is just some of the concepts for what we've seen installed in other places or what these could potentially look like. Again, very small relative to what you see if you see a wireless communications tower with the big tower and the big equipment around it. These would be much less imposing and much smaller. You can see they're located kind of as just an addendum to a light pole or some other power pole, so that they are less noticeable. I have the ordinance on another screen here that I'm happy to pull up and go through in greater detail. I think relative to that, the main things to understand is that this code is specifically written for our rights of way in order to make sure that these facilities, as they come into the city, are kept out of our operational responsibilities for our Public Works Department, but also that they represent our city and they don't make our roads look worse or bad or anything of that nature, but that they're designed in a certain way that they are less imposing and impactful on the view shed for our corridor. Staff presented this meeting to the Planning Commission last week, wherein the Planning Commission recommended approval to this body on this proposed ordinance. And we've been through a couple iterations on this code. This is a more concise and honed code, whereas in past times we tried to tackle it all. We've just tackled the facilities specific to rights of way at this time. So be happy to answer any questions from the council at this time.
Okay. Well, thank you, Spencer. By the authority vested in me, I'll go ahead and declare the public hearing open. Is there anyone here to speak in regards to our wireless facilities?
Your Honor, seeing no public comment, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Well, that brings us to our open comment period, and I do have, again, two forms from people here to speak. Just a reminder, we do our best to be civil, and we limit our comments to 3 minutes. But the first of those is Chad Buck. Chad, if you want to come up, if you'd state your name and address for the record, since we are recorded.
Thank you. My name is Chad Buck. My address is 2205 South, 400 East in Clearfield. I have been here the last couple months trying to get a subdivision approved, and I did get that approval. However, now I'm still trying to get approvals because I am in a flood zone. And so that's why I'm here to talk to you tonight, is specifically about Title 13 of the City Code, which is the flood control section. You'll notice hopefully every one of you got a copy of a map. In the city of Clearfield right now, there are 2 flood zones, and they are both very, very small. I think I may be the first person who's ever been affected by the flood zone in the city of Clearfield. It looks like it was implemented in 1979, and then it was updated in 2007. Basically, the city's Title 13 follows very closely to FEMA's rules as far as what can be done in a flood zone and how things you can build, things like that in a flood zone. This map that I've given you guys is a copy, or it shows basically my property that I have. As you can see, the little red dot there in the middle of the page is the property where my subdivision's been approved. You can see that this flood zone covers about 5 to 10 feet of that area, and because of that, I'm not allowed to continue digging or to start development because even though my buildings won't be in that. So I went online, went to FEMA's website, and I found a few things that I would just like the city to consider as they're looking at Title 13, and maybe if there should be some kind of modifications to that. It says the intent of the floodplain management regulation is to minimize the potential for flood damages to new construction and to avoid aggravating existing flood hazard conditions that could increase potential flood damage to existing structures. So the purpose of this is basically to make sure that structures aren't damaged when there's any flooding. If you look on this map, you'll see that it covers basically 2 blocks right down 1000 East. If you've ever driven down that road, if there was ever a flood on that road, it would not stop at State Street, as it shows here on this floodplain. It's going to keep going further and further south and west. I've taken the site plans of my property. It is 4 feet higher than where the buildings are going to be built are 4 feet higher than the street height. There's also a detention basin that is required to be there that's between this floodplain and my buildings. I think that this Title 13 that we have in the city code is being excessively enforced, where I don't know that this flood zone should be here at all. Flood zone A is an approximation. It means that FEMA never actually measured heights of elevations. They just went with some assumptions. Most of these floodplains, if you look at them throughout the country, are next to rivers, lakes, ponds, streams, none of which we have in the city of Clearfield as far as I'm aware. There's also some other detail on the FEMA website. I know I'm running out of time here, that talks about if in flood zone A specifically, if a planned subdivision shows the floodplain is contained entirely within an open space lot, it may not be necessary to conduct a detailed engineering analysis. My site plan, this is all open space. It's sidewalks, it's detention basin. My buildings are not in there. It also talks about that flood zone A is specific to projects that have over 5 acres or over 50 lots in the subdivision, which this one is much smaller. So in conclusion, I'm asking the city to review Title 13.1 and all of the regulations and codes that are there, specifically as how they apply to allowing a developer to build. So, thank you.
Okay, we'll take a look at that. Thank you, Chad. Jerome? Sorry, I didn't want to mess with your last name, and I couldn't tell for sure. So if you just state your name and address, I'd appreciate it.
That's all right. Jeremy Curran, 2278 South, 150 West, Clearfield. Been a resident of Clearfield about 17 years. And all those years, I've never had a parking ticket next to my house for parking there during winter time. As of the new policy that happened last year, in a matter of 2 days, I had 6. I'd like to think that parking is a normality of living in a community with roads, which everybody seems to be reasonable to use and we pay for. Snow has been around since the dawn of time. There haven't been any issues with snow parking since I've lived here. I lived in Salt Lake when in October of 1980, such and such, there was 3 feet of snow. So I know everyone's shoveled snow. The natural things that happen with snow, I get it. Who's here shoveled snow that didn't have didn't agree to have to shovel it because the neighbor either put it there or a plow put it in your driveway, and where you had to make a run to get into your driveway because the plow put it there. There's always the little things that get in the way, but I do think that people who have multiple kids, that have multiple vehicles in households which are plentiful in our community, you're going to have more than one vehicle, more than two vehicles, more than three vehicles. Or if you have a job that requires you to bring home a vehicle or a trailer or those kinds of things, you now are compacted even more. And so taking away just the absolute parking, to me, is unreasonable. It basically says, let's harass you just because we can. I don't think that's helpful. The stress that goes on in a home because you have to finagle cars and worry about tickets is just unnecessary. Anybody who's had kids, stress, is it fun? I'll tell you right now, it's not. Trying to teach them, okay, parking is already a problem. Just trying to teach them not to get in an accident. Do you have kids? Anybody had kids driving yet? You ever? Okay, raise a hand. I'm sure you have.
Yep.
Okay, there's no reason for it. To me, it's like if the plow person can't drive around a car, then he shouldn't be driving. That's the way I look at it. That's how I feel about it. And if I put my car out there and the plow hits it, that's my fault. But on the same token, you got to pay for what you damage. That's just the way it is. To me, that's you run the risk of driving on the road and having an accident. I was in 2 of them 2 years ago. Not my fault, but that's just the risk of driving and using roads. To me, I need to live, I need to park my car, I need to have it be there because that's where I live, and not have to be pulled away from it because all of a sudden snow arrives. To me, that just seems unreasonable.
And I understand what you're saying, and there'd be a lot of people that would agree with you and a lot of people that wouldn't. The city's job is to plow streets, is to keep the streets clear so that our residents can drive on them. If they have to come 8 feet or 10 feet out into the road, in many cases, there's no road. There's nothing left to plow if the cars are there, which leaves us nowhere to plow the roads. And I get more complaints from people's roads not being plowed.
I hear that too.
Than
I
the
hear
other
that
way
on
around.
cul-de-sacs and several cul-de-sacs in my neighborhood where they're like, hey, and then the comment is when they call the city asking why isn't that plowed is, well, you're not a priority list. You're on number 10. We got to take care of antelope, which is reasonable, understandable. I get it. There were several roads, in fact, over just off of 400 West, didn't get hit when there was a lot of snow. Last year was an anomaly. But to me, those are just natural. To me, we still have to live. And if I have to bring home a car, or if I have 4 kids that have driver's licenses, which I do have, I have 3 and 2 cars. Really?
I know. I've dealt with it for years. I've got 7 kids, and so we've shuffled it every night, and we come out and we shuffle cars because we know who has to leave first. And
we still need
it's just what we've done to keep our cars off of the street. We've been,
and that's okay. To me, it's okay.
We've been ticketed as well, so it's not exclusive to you. I've been ticketed as well for my kids parking on the street, and they learn, and I make them pay the ticket if they do it. They've got to figure out a way to do it. But I understand where you're coming from. It's not something we're going to eliminate. I can tell you just right out, I'll bring it up with the council, but I can't imagine we're going to have a whole lot of.
It's not so much eliminate, but people still need to park. Somehow there needs to be a balance there, and I think there is a balance if it wants to be there. If you just kick it out the door, yeah, great. But to me, you all work for me, and I can know for sure with confidence, if you force me to go find people to say, hey, fix it, it's going to be. To me, it's on you, because I can pretty sure I can find people to say, fix it.
Sure.
But sure, there's always going to be someone in the naysayer. I get it. But again, we still have to live. We still have to park. There should be an ability to come home and not have to worry about it 2 in the morning whether I get a ticket because I live there. I'm not parking on a city parking or being an inconvenience to somebody. I mean, the tickets I got, there was either a 2 inches or 0 snow and just got ticketed. That's not reasonable to me, not even close. Can you really be conscientious and to say that's okay to you?
Just a matter of how we enforce
the
it.
hesitation tells you.
No, it's just how I word that. But Yes, because there's reasons for it, but we will bring it up as a council and talk about it. It's not
Just
something we haven't
because you
talked about
can
many
doesn't mean you
times.
should in life. That's just the way I see it, and
Sure.
that's just normal principles of life. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So,
Understood. We will bring it up and we'll take a look at it.
so what can I do in the meantime, and what can I get feedback what? I mean, what
I can tell you that we will discuss it as a council. It's not something we can take action on tonight. It's
I
not on our
understand,
agenda.
I understand.
But we will certainly discuss it.
Okay.
Thank you. Were there any others that were here to speak tonight that we don't have forms from? Okay, we'll move on. That brings us to item number 3, which is consider approval of ordinance 2018-16, enacting Chapter 19, Small Wireless Facilities in Title 11, Land Use of the Clearfield City Code. This is the information Spencer just gave to us. Council, did you have any questions for Spencer?
I do have one point of clarification. There may be a confusion because I thought that there was some sort of notification need in there. And I saw the requirement to provide envelopes to the city, stamped envelopes, but I didn't actually, and maybe I missed it, but I looked through it a couple of times to see where there was actually the specific mention of the need to notify adjoining property.
So these requests would not be conditional uses. If there is a need to notify, then we could do so. I think we discussed that we would be happy to notify those in the vicinity who would be.
Well, maybe I misunderstood, but I thought there is, under the actions, the necessity to provide the city with envelopes with the information in them. So if you, let's see. I know it's in there. I didn't take a note, but I'm trying to scroll up on your screen. It doesn't work.
Oh, and I'm trying to scroll through just to recall the section where that falls.
I believe it's in B here under the application form, but
There's agreements, other documents showing permission to locate. There's reports, memorandums, appropriate qualified professionals showing the location. Affidavit
no,
of yes, sir.
It's in our ordinance.
oh, okay, sorry.
Wrong ordinance?
Yeah,
Okay.
did the wrong ordinance.
I recall the last ordinance that we reviewed relative to this matter was a lot more involved and had a lot
Yeah.
more components to it, which could have been the case, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure we were clear because we can do that, but at the same time, it's additional cost relative to the application and then time that is not required by state statute. So,
Okay.
I apologize for that. That's what happens when I do things without notes.
you're good. Thank you, Councilman Phipps.
Any other concerns, council? Not, I'd entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I move to approve ordinance 2018-16 enacting Chapter 19 Small Wireless Facilities in Title 11 Land Use of the Clearfield City Code and authorize your signature to any necessary documents.
Second.
A motion from Councilmember Phipps and a second from Councilmember Roper. Requires a roll call vote. Councilmember Phipps?
Aye.
Councilmember Roper?
Aye.
Councilmember Thompson? Aye. Councilmember Bush?
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson?
Aye.
That is unanimous. Item number 4 is to consider approval of the final subdivision plat for the Freeport Center 700 South subdivision located at approximately 775 West State Road 193. Brad, we will turn the time over to you.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Thank you for having me here tonight. So for the record, Brad McElrath, senior planner with Clearfield City. So as you stated, Mr. Mayor, this is a request for a final subdivision plat for these properties that you see before you, highlighted in red. So it's approximately at the corner of 193 and 1000 West. And then you've got 725 Street that's actually located somewhat right in the middle of where this subdivision is going to be. So the whole point and purpose behind this subdivision is to combine some properties that are existing there currently, some smaller properties, and then to create 2 larger pieces of property for redevelopment in the area, or at least new development for industrial, manufacturing, storage, and those types of things for those types of uses. So this is the overall plat that you see here. So I'll kind of zoom in. You see this a little bit more. So on the plat, you've got the north arrow that's at the top left, and then as you can see, the north arrow is on the top right here. So it actually orients it a little bit different. But Lot 1 actually will go around those two existing properties. Those are not involved in this subdivision. And then the match line is essentially right where 725 West is. So that would be on the bottom of your page. So if we're looking at it here, we're looking at an aerial view, and so west would be at the top of the page, north is to your right, and south is to your left, and then east is to the bottom of the page. So you've got Lot 1 there, and then Lot 2 is just east of that. Again, the match line was 725 West. That's a private street, but it would be the match line in between those two areas. Again, just creating really large parcels, so that way we could have some flexibility for future development here. So the Planning Commission, they reviewed this subdivision request on their meeting at their meeting on September 5th. They approved the preliminary subdivision plat and then forwarded a recommendation of approval to you as the City Council for the final subdivision plat, subject to the 4 conditions listed there. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions about this request if you have any about it.
Council, any questions for Brad?
Not a question, but on the subdivision, it says it's 700 West subdivision, and this information we have says 700 South subdivision, so I think we need to change the information on our agenda to say 700 West subdivision.
That's correct.
Yeah, is it the information here in the presentation, or?
The information is correct. The information on here says 700.
Oh.
700 South. And
Okay, gotcha.
Should be west. Should be west.
Should be West.
We'll make that change. Thanks, Kent.
Yeah, so it's essentially approximately 700 West, even though it's kind of along that whole stretch. But.
Right. Okay. I know Betty is here. Betty Parker from Freeport. Would you like to come up and address?
My name is Betty Parker. What I'm wondering on the 700 South could be the south, because it goes down into Syracuse along the southern side of that, because it would be 775 West. And SR 193, 1,000, and then 700 on the, so I just wondered if that was.
Well, the plat says 700 West subdivision, so we need to approve it as what the subdivision plat is showing.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go with that, and we'll change our agenda to make sure that it matches
Okay, that
the
sounds
proper
fair.
place.
Any other questions?
I was going to ask the council. Council, did you have any questions for Betty? We appreciate you being here with us tonight.
Thank you.
It's always good to see you. Okay, council, if there's no other questions or concerns, I'd entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I move to approve the final subdivision plat for the Freeport Center 700 West subdivision located at approximately 775 West State Road 193, and authorize your signature to any necessary documents.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That is unanimous. Item number 5 is to consider approval of the Community Development Block Grant Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report for the 2017-2018 program year. Brad, welcome back.
Thank you. So I'll just give this next slide, just give a brief overview for those that are in attendance or tuning in via the website. So just to give an overview, the Community Development Block Grant, it's a grant that we receive from Federal Housing and Urban Development to allow us as a city to provide community development opportunities, or opportunities to serve those that are low or moderate income individuals in the community. Every community, I think, along the Wasatch Front has those individuals that benefit from these services. Sometimes it's handled on the county level, other times it's handled on the local level, such as ours. So what this report is, the Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report, the CAPER, is a review of what we've done over the entire last program year. It's a requirement from HUD that we review the goals and objectives that we had in our action plan for the last year and evaluate where we're at and are we meeting the goals and objectives of what HUD is giving us funding for. So to give a brief overview, this is for the 2017-18 program year. So it was from July 2017 to June of 2018 is the program year. And so now we're in the 2018-2019 program year. We have certain subrecipient public agencies, service agencies that receive funding from us. So as the city, we receive the funding directly from HUD, and then we provide funding to them to provide services for the community. So 3 of those agencies include Open Doors, it used to be called Family Connection Center. They help individuals get emergency food needs, also help them with financial planning, help them understand their finances a little bit better. There's a Circles program that they offer that really helps people go from one stage of their life to the next, and essentially provides people an opportunity to get some help in a time that I think at least some of us at some point in our life needs some assistance. The Davis Community Learning Center specifically helps at 2 of our local elementary schools, Holt and Wasatch Elementary, I believe, and the services that they provide there are educational services for the students, but then also for families of students that are there. So they help with, I believe, food drives. They also help with some learning classes, and then also, they've reported that they've helped some people find some housing or find some financial assistance. And then Safe Harbor, it's actually located in Kaysville, but they provide a shelter, or at least some intermediate housing for people that have a need, where they're leaving domestic violence situations or other types of situations like that, where they provide mostly housing for women and children. Men are assisted a little bit, but that's not their main focus. Correct. And then some other programs that the city provides with assistance from the Davis Community Housing Authority includes a down payment assistance program to help people, first-time home buyers, if they're within that low to moderate income housing category, that helps them get into a house with providing some assistance for the down payment. A housing rehabilitation program, which helps individuals in the community, and the CAPER talks about that, how that has been implemented over this last year. And then an emergency home repair program. Both of those are geared at helping revitalize homes, help individuals that maybe they're within that range where they would like to make some improvements on their house, but their income level isn't enough where they can do it on their own. They need a little bit of help. So those are the down payment assistance program, housing rehabilitation program have been very successful, especially the housing rehabilitation program over the last 6 to 8 months. The emergency home repair program, as is outlined in the CAPER, hasn't had as much success, actually little to much success. And then there's also some funding that has been built up over a few years for the 250 North infrastructure project. That'll begin in the spring this coming year, so 2019. So 250 North, not far from here. So that will use CDBG funding, and then also funding that the city has put forward with our public works to put in new infrastructure and repave the road there. And we're allowed to do that because of the households that are within that area that fall in that category that we're allowed to use that funding for. So, and then based upon the information that you provided back to myself as staff in writing this CAPER, be making some adjustments, and then I've also made adjustments leading up to this meeting to make sure that this is accurate. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about the report.
Okay, council, questions for Brad?
Did we ever get any public comment on this?
Yeah, thank you, Councilman Bush. So we had an open comment period from August 22nd until September 7th. That's required. It's a 15-day comment period. We put legal ads posted on our, where we could, where we're required to. We didn't have any public comment. It was available in our office for people to come. We've had people come and provide comment in the past. We just didn't have any this time.
Okay. If there aren't any other questions for him, I'd entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I would move to approve the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report, or CAPER, for the 2017-2018 program year, with one change, as we discussed in our work session just prior to this meeting, a paragraph that appears on page 25 of the document, just to strike and leave the 2 remaining paragraphs underneath it that spoke about the, let's see, it was the, actually I've got my notes here, that referenced the citizen comment that Councilmember Bush just brought up, but with that one change, and would then authorize your signature to any necessary documents.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that is unanimous. That'll bring us to item number 6, which is to consider approval of the development agreement with King Storage LLC for the Canterbury Court Townhomes located at approximately 1230 West, 300 North. Brad, welcome back once again.
Thank you. So to give some background on this property is located at 1230 West, 300 North, just west of the Weinigers grocery store. So the property was zoned R3. As a condition of that R3 rezone, that the site plan, the subdivision would have to be approved, and then also a development agreement would be required. For this proposed development, it's a 30-unit ownership townhome subdivision, and with some of the development agreement standards, there's an allowance to have some relaxation, I guess you could say, in some of the design standards. So the R3 zone requires that there's a front setback of 25 feet. The applicant is requesting that that be reduced to 20 feet. No, not requesting any changes to the side or corner side yard setbacks, and then just a request on the rear yard setback from 30 feet to 18 feet. And I'll show you the site plan. So this is the property, if you're not aware of that. And then this is the proposal submitted by the applicant. So you can see there's the 30 townhomes. These would be private streets in here. Actually talked to the fire chief with Deputy Fire Chief earlier today about the arrangement of these roads, wanting to make sure that they were not parking on the streets, but we'll handle all of that in the design, the site plan review, and then also the subdivision, but wanting to make sure that it met standards for fire access, that they'd be able to get a fire truck in there. The roads would be sufficiently wide to be able to do that, so that works. In order to fit all of these units in there, that's why they're requesting the modification of those setbacks, and seeing that the development agreement is a requirement of the rezone. Thought that it was appropriate to address it here at this stage as well. So with the development agreement, it's essentially, you have the agreement between the city and also the developer to make sure that we're getting something that we would like to see in this project that's of high quality, and then they're also getting something in return. So in the development agreement, there's these two sections that talk about the obligations that would be on the developer. The first one is that along the 300 North frontage, the city would like to see that there is some buffering, some nice fence buffering. So either a high quality type fence with 5 feet between the sidewalk and that fence in order to place trees and also to place some landscaping. That'll provide additional beautification for the city along 300 North, and then also some privacy for the residents that live in this project. And own homes in this townhome subdivision. And then the second one would be an obligation regarding a pedestrian walkways inside of the development. The reason we would like to see that as a city is to make sure that the residents here not only have access to the private open space that would be provided, but that they are also able to access the public sidewalk. This is a development that would add 30 new homes, owner homes, townhomes in this area, and there should be some good access from each one of these homes out to the local commercial businesses there, and then also over to Steed Park. You've got Holt Elementary that's not too far. So if we can provide good pedestrian connections and also good buffering, that's going to promote a good design and will really improve the quality of this development. So based upon some conversations that we have had between the City Council and also with the applicant, these are just some examples of what we're looking for when it comes to that street buffering and the street beautification. There is some grade change, so there's the picture that's in the bottom right-hand corner. There may be the need to do a little bit of retention, and this shows an example of how you could do some retention. The language in the development agreement is open enough to say that there shall be a buffer of 5 feet, and that the fencing has to be of a solid, high-quality material. And that there was some concern by the applicant before that having a masonry requirement might be a little bit too strict, and as you can see in the example on the left, that is actually a vinyl type fence, but it's a high-quality vinyl type fence. So you can still get a high-quality fence material without going all the way to masonry material. So we open that up a little bit more and allowing him to have more flexibility and you could also say more creativity on how he will address that buffering requirement. And then again, I've already talked about the internal pedestrian connections out to the street and also to their open space. So with that, this is the first time I've brought a development agreement to the city council, so if me making a recommendation is taboo, then you can just tell me. But my recommendation is that we would, to the city council, is approval of this development agreement, subject to those things that have been changed, and then also subject to you as the city signing off on that development agreement, and then the developer recording that development agreement on the property, so that way it's there and it's a record that stays with the property.
This does bring a good project to this area, and it's a lot that sat there for ages and ages, expected to go commercial, as Weinigers was there, and with Smith's going in and SR 193 coming in, all of that traffic is kind of been diverted over to that direction, and so it's the likelihood of this ever having gone into a commercial development was pretty slim to none at this point, and so this is it's actually a really good use for the property. Okay, council, any questions for Brad?
Just a couple.
Yes.
You referenced it on that development agreement number 2B, where it does address the pedestrian walkways.
Yeah.
In a previous work session where we had a chance to speak with the applicant, in addition to addressing sidewalks and the circulation within the property and access to the commercial, there was also a mention of a sidewalk that would come, around the play structure. There was an additional one. Is the language, in your opinion, that's reflected in B enough to bind the developer to that, to make sure that that additional walkway is included at time of construction?
I think so, in the second sentence where it says this walkway is to allow for pedestrian access between units and to and from the open space.
Where it says the open space and definitive, I just wanted to say, is there room for interpretation there? I believe it was a good faith representation, but just in making sure that we're able to have that sidewalk, in addition to just the circulation throughout the site, you have that additional one that allows for that access there. I don't have that.
Yeah, if you would like more clarification, we could say to the private open space or to this development open space, then we're being more specific to that.
Just making sure, if you're comfortable, or even Stuart, with the language there, great. I just want to make sure that we are able to enforce that.
Maybe
Should that
say
ever be a...
to the play area.
Okay, to the play structure within the open space?
And open space.
To the play area.
Because you've got just that additional one where we talked about the circulation there and the need for that to have formal actual...
Yeah, and we could certainly amend the development agreement to include that.
Just that little, and again, I believe that the developer made a good faith representation to include that, but I'm a little bit more comfortable when you have language that just sets that expectation clearly for both parties and there's an understanding there.
Certainly.
So there was that one. The other one, too, and you touched on it again, number 5 on the development agreement, talking about this development agreement running with the land, and in your recommendation, there is a call out the developer would be bear the responsibility to have that recorded at the county. Do we have a way to verify that the county has received that, and we don't have a situation where it doesn't get properly recorded?
Right, so for us, it would either be myself taking it down to the county and getting it recorded,
Okay.
or we would want to have, before we even issue permits, we would want to have him provide to us, as the developer, documentation that shows it was recorded. And then we could even check on the property and look and make sure that it's recorded before we issue any permits.
Okay.
And that's our standard practice now, is that the developer bears the cost of the recording,
Okay.
but our staff actually takes
Oh,
it down
nice.
to the
Okay,
county
so
to do
we can
that.
show that, okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you. Those are my
Thank you,
two
Judy.
concerns.
Council, any other concerns?
Yeah,
Okay.
if these are townhomes for sale, are they gonna have to do a subdivision plat on the issue on the individual lots? They haven't done that yet, or?
Correct. So well, they're actually in the process. So they have applied to do the preliminary subdivision review with the Planning Commission. This will have to go through, because of the number of lots, it'll have to go through preliminary review, make the revisions, and then come back for final review. So right now, where the lots are, you can see that there's the hashed out areas for each unit, but there will need to be some more detail provided when it comes to the limited common area and then what is the common area. Typically, you have their private backyards is limited common, and then the areas, the rest of the subdivision would be highlighted as common area. And then we would want to make sure that with that, that there's a draft homeowners association covenants and restrictions to make sure that they're is going to be that future ownership and that there's maintenance of it, especially if we're going to allow private roads.
And then just, we were talking about the fire department, and last week after I thought, this doesn't show fire hydrants, but I meant that will be shown on the subdivision plat, right? With placement of hydrants approved by the fire department.
Right. So spoke to the deputy fire chief today, and our concern mostly revolved around the width of the road and be able to get a fire truck in and out of there. But he was providing me with his comments tomorrow about this subdivision. So I'll be able to look through that and make sure that, you know, we have everything that we need when it comes to fire hydrants. It's likely that, you know, we'll need to have at least one or two, just guessing here, at least one or two fire hydrants internally. Those would be private fire hydrants, but the fire department would still have access to them.
Okay, thanks.
His main concern was the width of the road and not having parking there because of a fire hydrant trying to get in. No matter what time of year it is are the driveways deep enough to be able to have parking on the driveways? And, you know, there would likely be that the curbs would need to be red striped and also signage provided saying that there's no parking. And he felt comfortable moving forward in that direction.
And you have to think about snow removal too, a place to put snow and still get a fire truck in.
Mm-hmm, correct. So, and the snow removal, because it would be a private street, would be on them as the homeowners association.
Further questions?
I was just going to make a comment that on section 17, this is just a carryover from a previous document where we brought the language forward. But the title of section 17 references the CDRA, which is not a party to this
right.
agreement, so we can just strike CDRA from that title there.
Thank you, JJ.
Section A.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Your Honor, I'll move to approve the development agreement with King Storage LLC for the Canterbury Court Townhomes located at approximately 1230 West, 300 North, with the changes noted, and authorize your signature to any necessary documents.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that is unanimous. That brings us to item number 7, which is to consider approval of ordinance 2018-15, enacting Title 15, Public Art, and Title 15, Chapter 1, Original Art Murals of the Clearfield City Code. And Trevor, we're going to give this one to you.
Let's steal some of Brad's thunder tonight, I guess. So, Mayor and Council, we have brought this before you in about 3 work sessions now, if you span the whole history of that. But just for the sake of background, we had an opportunity to put a large-scale mural in the city, and prior to doing that, we noticed it might be beneficial for us to have a procedure that future murals may need to follow to come into the city. So, in the last 2 work sessions that we've covered this, I think we've covered all of the comments that you've given us for review tonight as you consider to approve this ordinance. Some things that just to draw to your attention, there was just a moment of clarification on the application fee for public murals. We had discussed that there would be a fee, but we hadn't decided on that fee itself, and so we had put a $50 permit fee, which is in accordance with what we already do for our sign ordinance for that. So that's just something to keep in mind on that. Other than that, this ordinance is to promote the appearance of murals within the city. There are some requirements that those muralists will need to adhere to, and so this just makes that process standardized so that we have an application process that isn't cumbersome for the community, but allows us to make sure that the proper steps are followed for the administration of it. So,
okay, so now, for the scouts that are sitting behind you, in layman's terms, would you just tell them what you just told us?
Yes. I didn't think I spoke like Spencer.
Since you are the Facebook guru and the Facebook man for the city, and you're running this Facebook Live stream right now, for the audience out there,
Okay,
In
I didn't realize that I
In
spoke.
140 characters or less, could you tell these guys what you just did?
I've got to tweet it now, huh? It's 280 characters now, so I got some leeway there. Basically, we want to create murals within the city to beautify and make the city feel more vibrant, and allow residents to create murals. But we have a process that they need to go through to get approved to place a mural on private or public property.
So the idea is these along State Street or other corridors, or a business owner might own a building and want to paint a mural on the side of it.
Yeah, basically.
And we'd like to encourage them to do that in many places.
Yeah, because the whole purpose of art is to create place, create a sense of excitement. You know, as you walk down places with public art, you get excited to see that. You take more selfies by it, right? And you want to be there. So that's just an effort to bring that to the forefront. We're going to be promoting some of our own mural opportunities here after the decision on this ordinance, and then hopefully that will spur some action in the private community to also beautify their spaces through art on their building. And when we say murals, it's not just painting, it can be application of other materials to create a mural on the side of the building. So.
Okay. Now, I did that just, in case your scout leaders say, okay, in order to get this merit badge, I want you to explain what Trevor Cahoon said about artwork in the city. So there's the question for him, leaders. That's Council, any questions for Trevor?
Hey, just a thank you. I appreciate the clarifying language on 15.1.2 on scope, just cleaning up any potential conflicts with signage, so thank you.
Excellent. I'd like to re-say what I said earlier. Just, there was that comment or that requirement there to provide the envelopes, but I didn't see anything specifically that mentioned that there was a need to have a notification, so.
And I remember seeing it when
Yeah,
I did my
it
review
is,
today. That
on
it was
the-
stamped envelopes provided to
Yeah,
staff.
and
On it's 15-1-7 on the permit process. Line 6, the muralist is required to bring a stamped addressed envelope provided to the city for the properties adjacent to the proposed mural location. The envelope should include a copy of the application and proposed mural and copy of the concept plan.
yeah, that's, and it just seemed unusual because it's like, bring the city a set of envelopes with this information in them. And I guess if that's normally the way it's done.
It's fairly standard
Is
for,
it? Oh, okay.
for rezoning.
Okay.
They do
But-
that process as well. We
And
follow
so it's
kind of
clear
rezoning
how
process,
many
yeah.
to bring and what?
Adjacent properties.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the muralist is responsible to look at the properties adjacent to the property that's going to be applied. So the muralist could not be the property owner. So either the property owner or the muralist, whoever is in charge of getting all this process done, they have to identify those properties around, bring us those addresses.
Yeah,
And
that's
it
what
could
I'd
be
understand.
current resident.
Yeah.
at this address.
That's why my reading of it, and maybe it's just me, was the requirement is to bring envelopes in that are addressed, but there's no indication of what addresses are on them or how many or anything like that in this code itself. So that's implied, but reading this, I don't see anything that says these are the addresses that should be on there. There's nothing about it.
So we don't have anything in our code specific to our land use notices either. What's understood is when somebody makes application for a property, that within 300 feet of the parcel boundaries, there to provide notices. And usually that's something we explain to people because it's not intuitive and it's hard to put into language in the code about how to go about doing that. So what it is that they're required to bring in notice, property owner addresses and will provide the notice to them relative to that. So, but.
So this language is adjacent property.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good. Hopefully they can figure out who that is and why we get the envelopes and we actually do it is to make sure if they missed one, then we can let them know you missed one and we make sure it actually gets done.
So
Yeah.
I missed where it said adjacent property owners.
It's there in 6, stamped and addressed envelopes provided to the city for the properties adjacent to the proposed mural location.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thanks, Trevor. I'd entertain a motion, council.
Your Honor, I move to approve ordinance 2018-15 enacting Title 15 Public Art and Title 15 Chapter 1 Original Art Murals of the Clearfield City Code, and authorize the signature to any necessary documents.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Thompson and a second from Councilmember Bush. Councilmember Thompson?
Aye.
Councilmember Bush?
Aye.
Councilmember Roper?
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson?
Aye.
And Councilmember Phipps?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That is unanimous. And item number 8 is to consider approval of ordinance 2018-17, amending the city's consolidated fee schedule to include fees for small wireless facilities and original art murals, as well as minor adjustments to the vehicle restoration permit fee and the abatement administration fee. And is this, who's got this?
Well, I think you said it all. You introduced it right there.
That is true. I guess I just did. That is, we are amending the code
Amen.
to, or amending the fee schedule to add those items to the schedule and then declare clean up little language in other parts of it.
If there are any particular questions, we
Yes.
can ask the subject matter experts on those items.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Council, any questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I'd move to approve ordinance 2018-17, amending the city's consolidated fee schedule to include fees for small wireless facilities and original art murals, as well as minor adjustments to the vehicle restoration fee and the abatement administration fee, and would authorize your signature to any necessary documents.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Peterson and a second from Councilmember Roper. Councilmember Peterson?
Aye.
Councilmember Roper?
Aye.
Councilmember Phipps?
Aye.
Councilmember Thompson?
Aye.
Councilmember Bush?
Aye.
That brings us to item number 9, excuse me, which is an update on the fiscal year 2018 year-end financial status. And we will turn the time over to Rich to bring us up to speed. The fact that the lights went out, council, and that Rich is speaking is not an excuse to sleep.
Let's have a little bit of light.
We have a financial
weird.
guy and lights off.
Do not go well together.
The scouts missed the best part, man.
The scouts knew what was coming, and the scouts' motto is "Be prepared."
Yeah. Oh boy. Well, speaking of prepared, we are prepared. FY18, so it's difficult because we're looking forward with our budget, but now I'm pulling you back to looking back to FY18. This is July of 17 to June of 18. And these are not final numbers. We are in the middle of an audit right now. So the last you'll hear of 18 is when the auditors come and report on the audit in December, maybe January. So you can see in the budget, this column over here, we planned to spend down our reserves, $2.3 million. Those reserves we've been building up for one-time purchases. The actuals came in and where we actually added to our reserves. So we were $2 million over last year, so we're going to be about $2.4 million over what the state allows us for reserves for at the end of fiscal 18. That also changes our fiscal 19 budget because the beginning numbers we used were more conservative than this. It doesn't change the budget, just where we're beginning in that budget process.
Rich, can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
So given that expenditures were $2 million less than we budgeted, I'm guessing much of that has been reallocated, rebudgeted in FY19.
The capital component, yes, but we'll get to that. We didn't spend all of our personnel costs. We're at 96%. Nothing we spent full 100%.
And that's,
in any category.
That's always the case. I mean,
Correct.
We're always conservative in our budgeting, right, on both sides, revenues and expenditures.
Yes. And just so you know, this will be an audit finding. We get it every year, but the theory is we're building up our reserves for one-time capital-related projects with these reserves. Okay. So just real quick, usually this is helpful to look down here, but I had to include bond proceeds in the 7.7, so it kind of throws off the whole comparing year to year, and there was some bond proceeds in these, and so it's confusing, but we'll go through each one of these categories right now. So taxes, total taxes came in $726,000 higher than last year, or $943,000 higher than our budget. One thing that just came up this last week, Union Pacific Railroad filed a complaint with the Tax Commission and federal courts. The state tax commission assessed their value at $1.5 billion. They're saying they're worth $885 million. The potential effect on us, the city of Clearfield, is, out of all the cities, is the largest on us. It's a $26,000 decrease in our property tax revenues. We don't know the outcome of that yet, but it's something we would like to monitor. Also, property taxes in general just came in much higher than what we levied. I asked around, the best answer I get is our collection rate is, they guess on our collection rate when we do the certified tax rate, and they're collecting better than that guess year over year. So we keep beating what we actually levy. We also had $160K in delinquents, which our budget was 55, so it's much higher than normal of our delinquent property tax collections. Sales tax, 7.8% higher. Parrot tax, we started that thing 3 years ago-ish, projecting $200,000 a year. We're at $252 actual. The only bad news in the tax category is municipal telecom. That's what I've been bringing that up. We're 13% lower than last year, or $38,000. And if you compare to 6 years ago, we're almost half, or $203,000 less.
I like the delinquent tax part there.
Yeah.
That they're collecting, and it's an indication of the market right now. As those people are selling their houses and have delinquent taxes, we can collect them. And their title companies are picking them up for us, so.
Yeah.
Good problem.
Building permits, a little less than budget, so that's why and then last year we had one large project, City Center.
Can I make a point on that, Rich, real
Yes.
quick? I don't know if you've seen the monthly report that I just sent out before our meeting tonight, but on the community development page, you may notice that the permit fees that we received in the month of August, a huge spike, right? So we got one of our larger projects to, finally get their building permit. So it's the kind of thing it's really hard to predict, right? I mean, we budgeted in FY17, what was our budget? 175, right? And that was guessing projects that were going to come in, and sometimes they lag, and we get a spike when we didn't expect it.
Yep. And that will also, in plan check fees, a similar situation. The next category, intergovernmental charges for services. The more interesting one here is the 911 fees, not 911. 101,000 higher than last year in total budget, and that's because we switched from number of lines to call volume. I was looking at, and I thought they would adjust it some, but it's still been very much in our favor. So, and in the last page of in the packet, I did provide some specific programs, their revenue over expenditure, and how much they're subsidized by general monies, and that's dispatch. I did one on them. And then just last couple categories here, fines and forfeitures, 26,000 higher than last year, but short on the budget. And the first half of the year was much stronger than the second half of the year. I thought we would keep that pace, but it kind of petered off there in the second half of the year. Miscellaneous revenues, that's the bond. So that's why there's a big number there. So, and this is what I was talking about with JJ. This just shows in all these categories, in all funds, personnel, we spent 96% of budget, materials supplies 93, and we spent $14 million in capital. So even though we spent 71% of our capital budget, we did a lot more in FY18 as far as capital goes. The $4 million for the phase 2 of the maintenance operations center, cash funded. The purchase of land at Mabee Place and the Main Street land, $1 million over there. So that's takes you almost to $10 million on those capital. Oh, is there any questions on general fund? Anything? We're just moving into other funds at this point. CDRA, nothing to mention there. Water consumption's 4.5% higher than 17 and 2.5% higher than 16.
Is that water consumption overall, that's per capita then, is it?
That's just what we bill. So I just looked at our billing software and looked for the entire year, the total gallons billed. Storm was coming in lower, but it came back to just come over budget here, so that wasn't a concern anymore. So everything was tracking here. And then just on the economy in general, it's been a strong labor market, economic growth. Those put pressure on inflation. So it's something we want to look at. We're tied with Idaho for the highest employment growth in the nation at 3%. So this green line is the Zions Bank Wasatch Front CPI, and the blue is the national CPI. So they're saying the most recent CPI was 5.1% versus the national 2.9%. And that can tie into our sales tax. I think one of the reasons we're seeing higher sales taxes could be, and I don't know any of these things, but one of the things is just the cost of goods are higher, and as the cost of goods go up, we get more sales tax. So point of sale, Clearfield's point of sale, the red is this fiscal 18. Every quarter, we're higher than the prior years. It's interesting that April, May, June, July, August, September are the highest months. And I just wouldn't have anticipated that with October, November, December. But yeah, the next slide here, our point of sale compared to the state pool, so we have gone up 10.1% over the prior year, our point of sales in Clearfield, versus the state 7.1%. But one thing to note is that Clearfield's point of sale is about 0.5% of all sales in the state. And we're 1% of the population, just over 1% of the population. So the state pool is a much bigger and has a larger effect on us because that's 70% of our sales tax revenue. But it is interesting to look at what's going on in our sales in Clearfield. The other reasons, I did finally look at more detail to see if the online has changed anything. It, I would say, has had an impact, but not as big an impact as you would think. It's not a major impact. Other things, just the economy's good. If I look at all the businesses compared to prior years, everyone's up. There could be as far as what's considered point of sale, more purchasing where you get it shipped to your house, and that's considered the point of sale. There's an increase in subscriptions of online services and products. So if you stream something, there's some sales tax there, and wherever that's going to stream to is where the city gets that sales tax. And these are just ideas I'm coming up with. Haven't talked to other people about it.
So Rich, real quick, just to make sure we're understanding, if we have a Netflix weekend, we're helping our city's sales tax.
Correct. Yes.
Just want to put that out there.
You're binge watching, is that what you're saying?
I would say if you're going to Netflix, if you're going to have that, it's interesting though to see the evolution in, how our spending habits and the things that we're doing and how cities are capturing revenue in that. That would be, rather than going out to a theater, it's that much easier to stay home, but you're still recognizing the service and the costs associated with that through that,
Yeah, and there's also software. The software models change where you don't just buy a one-time piece of software at the store. They're trying to get you on the monthly subscription, and that changes where the sales tax goes.
Interesting, yeah.
There's a lot of things I would love to say, but I just can't. But that's about as much information as I can say in public. But I haven't seen anything a big outlier. It's just basically the economy's good. And then just lastly, I just want to talk about sales tax one more time. The jump from fiscal 13 to 18 is almost $1 million from here to here, 28%. So sales tax is our highest revenue source, and that has made things easier for us to get things done, get some projects done. 18, we're healthy. We're going into 19 healthy, and we've budgeted conservatively, and things look good. Are there any questions?
Well, Rich, I would just add to that final comment that while, on the revenue side things are good, we do feel the effect of a good economy on our expenditures. whether it's personnel or capital projects or whatnot. You know, we're seeing, you know, just doing business is more expensive. So, you know, this helps keep pace, you know, the higher revenues, but it's not like it's a windfall, right? Because we see the higher expenditures as well.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you, Rich. Healthy but not wealthy.
Correct.
That brings us to our communication items. Just a reminder that I'll be out of town Sunday through Tuesday. And was just looking at my calendar to see where we were last, but I didn't have anything else that I needed to bring up. Councilmember Bush.
I had a chance to go over to the Circles open house party, whatever it was, a couple of weeks ago for a little while. I would just like to say this floodplain map kind of concerns me. I think we need to look at that sooner than later.
We're already working on it. We're coordinating with FEMA on that. It's already in progress. Has been for some time.
Great. Thank you, Spencer, for the maps. Brad, I'll get going on neighborhoods. And I don't know when we want to talk about that, but just by way of information, I will be gone October 2nd. I don't know if we're planning on meeting that night. I'll be at the water conference. So I don't want you to schedule the neighborhood thing that night, okay?
It won't happen that quick. So.
That's all I have.
Okay, Councilmember Peterson.
Done. A couple things this evening. Like Councilmember Bush, I was at the Circles event a couple weeks ago, and just our appreciation, you know, we always have great police involvement, staff coming out there, but we have community partners that come out there with us. We had Dartside from Layton, but we also had a local DJ from Clearfield that was out there doing the music there. And that connection happened at our community networking luncheon. And, you know, that was a connection that, you know, businesses were able to connect, and community leaders within our, here in Clearfield, were able to find each other and help promote that. So we would just like to just continue to remind people, we meet once a month, you know, from noon to 1. The information is on our social media and on our website. We have one that's this coming Tuesday, and we do them here. And it's just an opportunity to come and get connected with our community, whether you're a business, involved in education, in our faith community, wherever that is. We would invite you to come, and it's one of those drop in. If you can make it 1 month, great. If it's not going to happen the next, but we would invite anyone who's interested in that to come to that. And then last week, I had a chance to step in for the mayor down at Chancellor Gardens. The Alzheimer's Association had just an amazing event, and it was a lip sync for the cure event where different service providers in the northern part of Utah, Davis and Weber counties were there to lip sync, battle each other, and raise money for a really good cause, and to bring some humor to a topic that's devastating to families. And so I just wanted to recognize their efforts and those in our community who work on that. But it was great to see them to do that, and to be able to have that opportunity. So that's all I had. Oh, one last thing. Also, just to our staff, just thank you collectively across the board. I think this week's packet was 200+ pages, and that's typical. For us to be able to get up here and make the decisions, we require an amazing amount of work and detailed information that, you know, are 10s, 20s, 50s, 70 pages long on any given topic, and all of that has to be put together so that we're able to make a decision with good information. So to everyone who puts those together for us every week, we appreciate having that so that we can make a good decision, because we're spending money that comes out of everyone's pocket, and I'd like to know that we do that, and I'm confident that we do that based on the absolute best information. So thank you.
Thank you. Right. Councilmember Thompson.
I just also wanted to talk a little bit about the Circles event I attended also. Just overall, it was a great event. I learned my kid is a ninja because she can go across the park real fast. But outside of that, I will say that I just want to speak to the greatness of what Opens Door and Lamont Hampton, who really heads up a lot of these things, how important it is to the community. The reality for me personally is I just see those effects talking with residents all the time, and how much they're touched by these efforts. And so I just like to thank that program, and I'm just so happy that so many people in our city support it. Going forward, next month, I'll be going to a mosquito conference. I have no idea what that's going to be about. But
did they invite the mosquitoes as well?
I'm not fast enough, so I hope not.
Take your repellent. Take your repellent.
Yeah, I'll wear plenty of it, like juke. But yes, I'll be going to some mosquito conference, learning about mosquitoes and being certified. I don't think it'll interfere with any council sessions, but I will update everyone, let everyone know. But I am looking forward to it. I am anticipating it, and I know it'll be quite interesting. Other than that, I have nothing else to report.
Okay, Councilmember Roper.
I attended our latest meeting for the Legislative Affairs Committee with Davis County. So we've been looking at the propositions and how they'll impact us as individual communities, and make sure that we have a say as things move forward there. It's been quite the education. We look at things pretty thoroughly through that process. Also recently went on just to ride along with our fire department, and wanted to thank our police and fire, especially on this day of remembering 9/11 and the great service that they give to our community. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Phipps.
Nothing.
Okay. You're right. Circles event was great. I really enjoyed it. They do a phenomenal job. Staff reports. JJ.
I mentioned that the monthly report was sent out just earlier this evening. Also, beginning tomorrow morning is the League of Cities and Towns annual convention. We'll see several of you there. Kicked off today actually with the Legislative Policy Committee. So it'll be a good conference. I look forward to it. Good opportunities to network and to learn. Also, I will be out of the office the 19th through the 26th, mostly for a conference of city managers and a couple of days of vacation.
Okay.
That's it.
Nancy?
Yeah, just our schedule is we don't have meetings for the next 2 Tuesdays, but we'll hit it hard on October 2nd with full agenda, and then again on October 9th. So we're still working on what's going to be on your agendas for October. So that's all.
Okay. Any other staff reports? Trevor, you have anything for us? You want to update us on what's going on?
Sure. So I just wanted to clarify, I sent out earlier today the newsletter that went out in the utility bill. There was an error. I put the first half of the leisure pool closure on the September side, but I failed to include it on this October side. So it will be closed through October 8th, I believe. Is that correct, Eric? Give or take. Hopefully October 8th would be the earliest. So I just wanted to correct you on that, correct that from me. So that was an oversight on my part. And then just wanted to further clarify for thank you for the shout outs for the neighborhood or the networking luncheons. Just to update you on that, we are going to continue with the loose format. We are going to have a portion where it will be I'm doing this event, or I'm doing this and I want your help. So I wanted to update you on that. That will be part of the format there. If you're not familiar with how that format, if you haven't been to it, it's fairly loose. It's introduce yourself, talk on your tables, talk with the group, talk to staff, talk to other people in the community. So really it is a networking event. It's not a presentation, and it's been fairly successful on that. So I just wanted you to be aware on that. And then we have a lot of events coming up after the pool is open, so watch for more information on Bonanza and some promotions on that, and then and the grand opening for the new play structure in the pool. So
the Night Out Against Crime.
Oh, and Night Out Against Crime. There's a lot of things going on. Night Out Against Crime is September 26th, 6 p.m. at Steed Park. We have partnered with Maverick and Weinigers for that event. Weinigers is providing the food for us. It's going to be hamburgers and hot dogs at that event, so it'll be a good dinner cooked by our police department, and probably recreation and aquatic staff as well will help with that. And so I want to make sure you come out to that. We have AirMed, Davis County Canine, the Bearcat will be there, and North Davis Fire District will be there as well. So we have the promotions out on Facebook, so if you can share those and like those and comment, that would be appreciated.
Got to see if I don't know who does it, but plant the fish, maybe they can come and plant some catfish that night. That's fun to watch.
Plant the catfish there.
The aerial seating.
There we go. Yeah, drop it in. Yeah, Chief, I'll let Chief work on that. Coordinate that part. Yeah, it should be a great event. We're excited about it. Bringing it to a different part of the neighborhood. So there will be some elements of our pop-up parties as well. We'll have giant beach balls and music, and it'll be fun. So, is there anything else? Any other events that I missed? I'm sure there's little ones out there, but yeah. And then we'll be sending updated upcoming events here tomorrow. So look for that in your inbox. So.
Okay, thanks, Trevor. Any other staff reports?
He brought up the pool toy. I just wondered, Eric, can we get the update on the new pool toy? Is it on schedule?
I appreciate it, Blaze, coming up, the videos that have come out and the pictures of taking that apart. It was just cool to see that entire thing dismantled and just, you know, that's been there since the beginning, and to see it come down was just like, oh, there's a chapter gone.
And quickly. We did the removal of the old structure ourselves, and credit to our parks staff. By noon, it was gone. It was kind of fast. We had our staff meeting, I guess it was Tuesday with the Labor Day holiday, and by the time we had staff meeting and got down there to Trevor brought the camera to set it up for time-lapse photography, it was mostly gone. So we didn't get as much of that as we hoped we would. But on the bright side of that, that put us half a day ahead of schedule, and we've been able to stay ahead of schedule. The first week, last week, the intent of the project was to remove the toy and do the concrete cutting so that they could this week do the pipe work, repiping sections, and then installing the new concrete by the end of the week is the goal. Our inspection by the health department is tomorrow morning. The piping's already been installed, and so pending that inspection, as long as everything has gone well with that, tomorrow morning we'll be able to start doing concrete a day or so ahead of schedule, which this is the part where it's going to look like nothing happens for a while. The concrete's got to sit, it's got to cure. The majority of that time, we'll be able to get back in there early next week, and they'll start installing the new structure. It'll probably take a week to a week and a half to finish that process. But it just depends on how things go there. That concrete, the longer we can let it sit before they put the new liner on, the better it will be. Their goal for completing installing the structure and then putting the Murtha liner, the PVC liner back in the pool, October 5th is their goal for that work. If that happens, then we're ahead of schedule for being done by the 8th. Everything looks good right now. The area where we would expect to see any surprises, that's past now, so that's good news. We've been able to accomplish a lot of other things with the center closed as well. So to answer that question, we're ahead of schedule. Fingers are still crossed that we remain ahead of schedule, but I'm sure that we'll be done with that by the 5th unless there's some sort of major surprise.
Okay, thanks, Eric.
You bet.
Okay. We need a motion to adjourn, that's it.
So moved.
Second.
We stand adjourned. Thanks, council.
Yeah, yeah.